What's up, Tea Weirdos? This is Denny.
And this is James from TeaDB. We'll add some sound effects. No, we won't, because that's too much work. And we have we're drinking the same Raw Pour from 305. So we've been drinking it since last week, since 5 minutes ago. And we are filming an AMA, which is basically just a Q&A. So y'all sent in your questions to us. And it's been a while since we've done one of these.
It has.
Yeah, so
we're going to drink, and James is going to make us tea while I ask questions. And I'm going to go out of order, and we're not going to get to all of them. So we will probably do this again in the future. Let's start off with the softball. Where did the name TeaDB come from? Fernando Casielato. Probably, maybe, is asking.
It stands for TeaDatabase, and I think we originally got the idea from IMDb. I think you were the one with the idea. Denny tends to be the one with the naming ideas. So TeaDatabase. It's kind of appropriate, kind of not. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a play on IMDb, basically. That's about it. And we've heard every coordinated and sensible insult as a result of that. So
TD bags.
Yeah, no need to continue to give them ideas about how to insult us. James.
Yeah, that's courtesy of Denny's sister. I believe was the originator of the person to use that. So
it's likely.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Lisa Literation asks, "What are your mom's favorite teas?"
My mom drinks coffee, so no favorite tea is there.
My mom really liked Flap Song.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely her, I think, probably go-to. Yeah, she really enjoys Flap Song.
Interesting. Like the smoky kind? or
Yeah, she really likes the smokiness of it. She also likes those flavored Demon Frere teas and stuff like that. I don't really know anything about them. It's been a long time.
So it's like fancy French.
I've graduated from those teas.
But your mom was one of the original people that got you into tea.
Yeah, let's actually ask that question here. So, how did you learn so much about tea? Can you share the resources, etc.?
You want to take that?
Sure, I'll start. I don't have, unlike James, who actually spends the time researching teas and does that sort of thing, I show up and I drink the tea, and I get treated to these teas on the show, and I feel super fortunate for it. Shout out to everybody who has sent us tea. It's awesome. I don't spend a lot of time learning about teas. I just show up and drink them and have a sort of a olfactory like memory of this stuff where, wow, this is a lot like this other tea and that other tea. So I've definitely read some books about tea. There's some the history of tea is kind of fun, but in terms of do I spend a lot of time researching tea? The answer is definitely not. So James is the expert there and does like all of the content.
Although I think originally I got most of my information on tea from you, because some of you may not know, but we work together. We're business partners, so we worked together and we had tea in the office and stuff. So,
correct. Yeah.
So that's how I got into tea, and I just read a lot on the internet. So.
Yeah, which works. The shout out to Google.com.
The internet, yeah. Google.com. I think you mean Al Gore.
Al Gore's search engine. Let's see here. James, what is the best way to store loose leaf tea? Does the container need to be airtight? Elroy Aguar is asking.
Usually, unless you're planning to store it for a really long time, I'll just store it with whatever it came in. So if it came in this, I would store it in this. Push all the air out if you want to. But I don't think there's too much reason to be too anal about it. I guess when it comes to really fresh green teas, specifically Japanese ones that you want to keep ultra fresh, storing it in the fridge could be a good idea if you don't plan to open it for a while. So if you buy like 2 packs of the tea, you could put one in the fridge, and then if you do that, you're going to want to wait for it to adjust to room temperature before you open it, so it doesn't get moisture when you open it from condensation. So but in general, I think you don't need to be too anal about it. I think the simple solutions usually work just fine.
Yeah, just drink your tea. It's
Yeah.
I mean, and if you want to store it, then if you're buying enough tea where it's actually a concern, then you should probably have some sort of tea closet that's humidified, maybe or maybe not. Don't worry about it.
Where you can hide from the tea monsters.
More importantly,
Yeah.
Tomas Gonda is asking, what are the different ways of experiencing the aroma of tea and their relative pros and cons? Do you have any favorites? How and why would you use a smelling cup, for example? Kind of a cool question. Gosh, I don't put that much effort into it. Besides, so like the Taiwanese smelling cup is a cup where you'll brew the tea into this small vessel.
Right.
Then you'll have the teacup on top, flip it over, twist it so it doesn't burn you all over the place,
Right.
and you can smell the teacup.
And usually that cup is like tall and
Narrow.
You're right.
Yeah. And it's designed so some with wine and with different liqueurs. Some of them the cups are designed differently so that they sort of get the fumes and aromas from the different flavors happening. I think for us, it's just like smelling the top of the lid tends to be the most often, and then smelling the dry leaf, smelling it after a rinse, smelling the tea when you've washed out the tea vessel but still have the dry leaf in, and you give it a little shake. And I think it's a cool element of the tea.
Right.
But I think for me, the emphasis has mostly been on the liqueur, although we do talk quite a bit about the aroma. What about you, James? Do you have any insights or opinions on that?
I think that about sums it up, and I think depending on what the tea is, the aroma might be a larger focus than that. For an older pour like this, the aroma doesn't mean nothing, but it does mean a little bit less than maybe if you burned something super fresh. So it's less of a attribute or a characteristic to look at.
How long can you store a tea cake for? Asks PD442.
A long time. It depends how you're storing it and what the tea cake is, but in general, the West is pretty dry for storage, and you don't hear a whole lot about people aging tea cakes too long, so probably quite some time. Depends on the tea.
Yeah. Let's see here. We'll keep this one short. Delarosi Tildelus is one word, asks, do you have any other passions, James?
Passions? I do a lot of cooking, and I watch a lot of films. What about you?
I like making backpacking gear. I like hiking outdoors and sleeping outside. Yeah, probably my main one.
Those are the current hobbies?
Those are the current hobbies, I'd say. How about you folks? Comment below on what your passions are. Let us know.
Being involved in the tea community, I've realized that a lot of people have different passions beyond tea. So some have like a pretty obvious overlap with tea, such as like wine or spirits communities. They'll be pretty into beverages and things like that. And some people come from coffee or whatnot.
Right.
But other people will be into other things.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think you and I can get down with some really good food, certainly. But at the same time, I'm, a burger will do me quite good. So, Chai P or maybe Chip asks, what could cause inconsistent taste in tea? I mean, brewing the same tea with the same parameters doesn't always seem to produce the same results for me. Sometimes it tastes good, other times it tastes like nothing.
Good to nothing, that's a pretty big range. I would say that there's a lot of things. And for instance, it doesn't even necessarily have to be be the tea. It could be actually you. Like if I had tea just first thing in the morning, or if I had that same tea in the evening after eating like a burger with we're eating like raw garlic or something like that, it's just going to taste way different.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the times I think people can overread into their sessions when really it's like the context is extremely important. Or drinking with other people can really affect your your perceptions of things.
Totally. So, yeah, absolutely.
I
mean, your taste buds are part of your biology, and your biology is subject to change just as much as the other factors. You can try your best to sort of keep things as consistent as possible. Some teas, depending on how long you've had them and how fresh they ought to have been drank, can kind of die off a little bit more quickly. Those teas tend to be greener teas, jade oolongs, and that's we're talking like over the course of a year. So with that being said, it might be you, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that maybe if you're not appreciating the session that you're at, then you just take a break, have some water, get some exercise or something like that, go about the rest of your day, and then come back to the session a little bit later.
Right.
See what happens.
Or it could be like maybe you have a bag, such as this one. You drink from the top, it's tasty, and then at the bottom you got a bunch of crumbs. So it's just going to be a fact of like some of the tea got a little bit crushed, and so it's going to be a little more bitter. So lots of reasons why session to session could differ.
Yeah. Here's a fun question from Teammate. What is a bad tea? You guys have reviewed 300 teas, and at least to some extent enjoyed them all. Haven't seen a just really bad tea on the show. Could you do a review of an awful low quality tea and describe what makes it bad?
This tea's bad.
Wow. That tea was really good, actually. We tend to bring high quality stuff on the show and just not bring on teas that are bad. So that's an interesting observation. It's certainly, I think, accurate. We definitely don't bring on any tea just to bring it on. We have limited time. We like drinking good tea. And so I think our rationale there is simply that we want to showcase some of the best teas that we're experiencing.
Right.
Try to go through as much tea as we can outside of TeaDB and then bring it onto the show. With all that being said, check us out for our first April Fool's episode. I don't know.
We definitely drank some bad tea.
Where we brewed Lipton tea.
Mystery black tea, I think is what it's called.
Mystery black tea.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think the thing about bad tea is that it's just boring. That's the thing. It just doesn't taste like much. It just tastes like flavored water. It's not a very interesting thing to bring onto the show. We could do it. James and I'll have to confer about that. I don't know.
I mean, I think part of the reason too is that like we're able to filter teas to a certain extent without ever having tried it, depending on who sourced it.
Right.
If we know who it's coming from, like if we know it's from Yunnan sourcing, presumably it's not total shit because Scott knows what he's doing.
Right.
And if it's from an unknown vendor, then we'll be a little more cautious with it. Maybe we'll try it first. Maybe we'll smell it first.
Yeah.
So it's not like we get 100 teas sent to us and we just pick 10 random ones. It's we choose based off of what we know about the tea.
And there is so much tea that does not make it onto the show that people are kind enough to send to us, and we just disappoint them.
So pretty much all those were bad. So sorry, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not that they're bad. It's just that they might not be as remarkable as some of the other teas that we have. We have, at this point, a lot of people who just want to send us kind of interesting teas to bring onto the show. We're so grateful and fortunate for that. Shout out to everybody who's contributed in that way. It's been awesome. Seriously, it's been a real treat. So Emil Reinberg asks, I'm curious about your experience, about if you experiment with a lot of tea brewing times. If you do, how? What kind of teas differ a lot with the same parameters? Gosh, I'd say the most obvious one would probably be these Darjeeling teas we've brought into the show. They really require their own sorts of brew parameters. We've had some green teas on the show, Japanese green teas, some Korean yellow teas that have been quite unique in that regard. Those are just the ones that come off the top of my head. I think you and I probably tend to drink a lot of Chinese and Taiwanese teas that do well on a Gong Fu.
Right, and that we're somewhat familiar with, so we maybe feel less of a need to experiment. I would say that it's been a while since we did like a systematic brewing episode. I'm not sure if we ever have really. But yeah, so maybe a little bit for some of the more foreign teas, but I don't know.
Here's a cool question from Pseudo Telekinesis Kengikos something. Sorry.
Butchered.
Do you guys... I'm going to try to get the grammar on this one a little bit different. Have you guys ever gotten anyone outside of the internet into pu'er or any type of loose leaf tea. I know this is only a lot of the Western tea drinkers, but people seem awfully interested in the topic. That kind of mirrors my experience as well. I often will have people over and try to sit down and make some tea for everybody, and they're like, "It's good." I'm like, "Okay." And that's about as far as it goes, which is fine. I don't need people who are my friends to like love the same things as I do necessarily.
Right.
And I try to make it as non-pretentious as possible. Just be like, "This is interesting to me. Does it pique your interest at all?" No? Well, who cares? It's just a nice warm beverage.
Go subscribe.
Exactly. What about you, James?
I don't have super high expectations, probably similar to you, about friends. I have gotten a couple of them to
I know a couple who you have,
Yeah, that have just, they have their own, like, most of them don't have the same routines as Danny or myself, or the same setups, but, they drink tea. Some of them I've gotten to right pour, and it's like, that's become their sort of, like, regular brew that they drink at work, and they have something that works well for them. And I guess that has been accomplished just through sort of just like casual tea sessions and introducing them to the flavors, and like if they are interested in for the price that it costs, then sometimes I'll be like, okay, I can order this for you if you want, and yeah.
Yeah, cool. Douglas Mikalski asks, "Hey James and Danny, another storage question. I live in a very low humidity climate, and I'm wondering if you have heard of anyone storing their pu'er broken up in airtight jars and getting okay results. I did this in 2013 with a raw pu'er, and after 3 years, it was pretty dried out, but it changed a lot for the better. My thesis is that you get a little air circulation from opening it periodically and through the rubber gasket, and additionally breaking it up versus keeping it pressed to offset some of the low circulation issues. Am I onto something, or was this probably a fluke? Thanks." I'd say that if it tastes better, keep doing. Don't. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And so over the course of, we're now in 2019, 2013, 6 years, you'll see a lot more dramatic of a change if that tea was pressed in 2012. And then you got it stored in 2013 versus if it was pressed in 2006. So
right.
I'd say that the age of the tea when you're earlier on in the tea's age, the storage will have a bigger impact. I think the general heuristic that at least we tend to espouse on the show, I don't want to speak for James, is just that the less humidity, the slower the process for aging will be. And that can be good or bad. It just depends on the tea, depends on how much aging it needs. If it's an aggressive, loud, furious tea from the start, you might want to have it in a more humid environment to get to some of the kinder notes a little bit earlier on in its age. But maybe you want to host or store it for 50 years, in which case you want to age this thing as slowly as possible. So, there's no right answer there. Just if it's tasting better and better, don't mess that up. James, what do you think?
I have heard of some people doing that. I've not tasted anything myself that has convinced me that like it's a way that I want to go for the storage. But as Denny said, it's like if it's working for you, people, if you just have a couple cakes, then whatever. Just do what's convenient and what's easy. It's not worth doing a huge setup for something that's like pretty small. Yeah, I've heard of sealed storages working, but usually they're in more humid climates to start. So, I don't know. I'd say the jury is still out on sort of the effectiveness, the efficacy of those sorts of approaches, but I don't know. Keep an open mind.
Totally. Yeah. Here's a challenging question name. Reflod? Is it Reflod? Niziak.
I'm pretty sure you nailed it.
Thank you. Is there a resource or compilation of info in regards to how particular areas can taste when fully aged and in different humidity conditions? I can't buy 40-year-old material from all areas, but a rough idea of what to expect could be useful in deciding what to age.
Okay, well that's a challenging but interesting question for sure, so thank you to Reftrod Nishiak, or something like that.
Pretty close.
So, I mean, I think part of the problem is that, like, areas and, like, sort of earmarking, like, certain, especially when it comes to sort of, like, specificity of, like, villages and things like that, is, like, they didn't really do that until, like, the early 2000s. So, it's, like, these older productions, we can say, like, some of the older ones are, the really old ones are, like, Iwus, maybe, and then some of the ones that are like 50 or 60 year old are from like Munghai County, but that's a big area. So it's hard to say. The other thing is that, like, you know, pu'er just flavors, it's like, it can be hard to describe. So I feel like it's almost always easier to experience it and to really get it in your memory rather than like describe it. Otherwise it's things that for me personally are kind of hard to grasp. It's like, what does like a lotus flower taste like? Like, I don't really know.
Right.
So it's like, and the descriptions that are helpful are like it's woody and stuff like that. So I'd say that's a really challenging problem. I don't necessarily have a great answer to it. Other than like to try what you can, and given your budget and stuff like that. And there's also lots of reasons to be skeptical of people that are selling teas that are supposedly from these areas. So I don't know. It's kind of an unfortunate fact of pu'er that like the stuff that's older has gotten just really expensive.
Totally, and there's no guarantees on what's going to become more valuable in the future with pu'er. Certainly, there seems to be a pu'er bubble happening. But with that being said, there's so much variety inside of these areas, different regions and locales that we've brought to the show that will bring on something that's classically a certain flavor, and then bring on something from that region that is a defiant of that classic categorization. So I'd say just go out there and try to enjoy tea as much as you can. Don't worry too much about I would say that for storing things, just try to find things that you think have promise, that taste good to you now, or that you think could taste good in the future, for whatever that means. And good luck. I don't know. Sorry.
Right. I mean, it's kind of a calculated guessing game. The processing and stuff has changed so much, and everything has changed so much that it's really hard to guess very precisely how stuff will age. I understand the question, though, and the want for that sort of information.
Totally. We'll end on this question.
All right.
Sorry.
I think you're getting worse as you're
going
on.
They're all one word. This is like a hodgepodge. Asks, what do you see in the future of TeaDB? How do you see the future of TeaDB?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that TeaDB has changed that much from episode 1 to 306.
Yeah. So just to recap, what we did to start this channel was we said, let's just do this tea thing. We love drinking tea together at the office with our co-workers while we do meetings and stuff. Let's just do 12 or 16 episodes of this, drinking it, and if we either enjoy it or we think it's getting some traction or we just want to keep on doing it, great. And if we don't, well, we'll have committed to doing 16 episodes, and that's a good commitment. And that's what we started with, and we're now on episode 306. So yeah. I don't think that we ever had, at least I can speak for myself, any sort of lofty goal with tea. For me, it's really about just a fun project. I don't want to make any money on it personally. I just want it to be a cool experience to hang out with my homie and have some good beverages. So
yeah, same here. So yeah, I mean, TeaDB has been constant, and I don't know, for the foreseeable future at least, it should continue to be.
But stay tuned for episode 500 where we make one big announcement.
Oh, way to tease it.
Clickbait. Oh.
Yeah, you got to figure that out. Yeah.
Exactly. Which will be like a lot of years from now. Anyway, that covers it for Q&A number 2, I believe.
Yeah.
At least with us
was
together.
Was it like 100? Episode 100 we did?
Yeah, it was
so every 200 episodes you get a Q&A.
We will probably do this again in the future. If we didn't get to your questions this time, I apologize. But feel free to leave them for next time. And if you guys enjoyed the video, like the video. If you didn't enjoy the video,
subscribe.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.